That's el río.
This one.
Yeah. That's plankton.
Hey, which one of you has the check out your name?
What book are you reading? This book that we have right here. Barely is a secret. Spanish. Was it your second book? I feel like there's certain and that's so good.
Also,
I wish you look at mine because you're interpreting. Rather than just like,
Oh, they didn't start.
yeah.
Take it. How are you? Okay, I'm gonna.
They're just for people to grab.
Okay.
We'll have to monitor the live stream.
What?
Monitoring the live stream.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Did they? Oh, okay. I thought they said they fixed it.
I think we're letting them. Yeah, we're letting.
Oh, that's my hat.
You're good. Yeah, I know. So the original book.
So yeah, they do all the seeds and like sourced in California, and farms where they do garden or play along. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, me too. I might have come here early and then tired.
I'm okay. I'm like just hopeful. I'm really happy. Like about the job. But like, yeah. I'm so excited. What's happening? I don't know what.
Hey, Ross!
This is where you're gonna be.
It's my last day. I'm moving up there somewhere in that country. Oh, my first day of work.
Okay, so hi, we'll be starting in about like 10 minutes. Thank you for tuning in. But you can see Krystle's here. And we have a few people, but we'll be starting in like 10 minutes. Thank you.
That took so long.
Yeah, I would imagine. Right time, right place, that thing.
Seriously, yeah.
Yes, I finally got
Yeah.
It's funny because people either really love that or they really hate it.
Like offended by it.
Yeah. It wasn't that. Okay. Yeah, it wasn't that. I realized when I got over here, I was in a parking lot or something. But yeah, there was a bunch of like 1 hour parking.
The one time they never really chose.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a little. Okay.
Oh, thank you. I already have some.
Wait, I recognize you.
Home Depot.
That works.
A museum.
A museum?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yes.
That's it. Thank you. I don't have a great sorry for anything. Are you?
There's water here.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, thank you all for coming. Just wanted to welcome you all to the space. Is this anyone's first time in the Coyotl Macehualli Lending Library? So we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We focus on land defense and land stewardship here in Ochunga, Northeast Los Angeles. Throughout the years, our work has included seeds and access to tools, like organically, these are things that came up. And fast forward this year, we opened up the space in June, or actually, yeah, June, and it's been received pretty well by community. And if you want to sign up, we have a membership. We can talk about that another time later today. This is Yoli. Oh, I didn't introduce myself.
Okay, this is Brenda. Yeah.
Okay, I'm Brenda. I'm the director of Coyotl Macehualli. Yoli is our programs manager, and outside, you probably met Sasad. He is the lending library manager, and yeah. Let's see a little bit more about the space. Bathroom is just right around the corner if anyone needs to use it. There is food outside, drinks outside, and we are also live streaming this as well. This will be available after, and we'll share it with all the participants. But everyone here today is here for Krystle and their book, the new book, ABCs of California native bees. So let's just give Krystle a warm welcome. We're really excited to have you in this space. Like, we're such like a little tiny part of like the conservation world, and we were just excited that you agreed to come out to Northeast LA to this little tiny space and share your book with us. Do you want to say a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, we're super grateful. It's like the plant people meeting the insect people, the native pollinators. Awesome. Always a good time, I think. Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming all this way from Long Beach or
North Hollywood.
North Hollywood. Okay.
Not that far.
Okay.
Kind of far.
Yeah.
For traffic, yeah.
Yeah. That traffic changes everything. Yeah. Well, that was a quick thing for me. Yeah.
Krystle does have some offerings later on, so feel free to come up after the discussion and talk to them directly about their offerings. But I think we did want to start off with hearing a little bit about your origin story. The structure of this is we're going to ask a few questions and open it up to the audience and also those online. And yeah, this is a quick 1 hour discussion. But yeah, if you want to start off with your origin story, we know that you do photography, conservation, this focus on native bees, and we're just wondering like, how did this evolve? What came first, photography, conservation, bees?
Can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. So kind of a long story, but this started, I was actually in a completely different industry. I was working in finance for quite a few years. And I got to the point with that job where I started to kind of realize I could look 3 months in advance on a Monday or Tuesday at like 3 p.m., 2 p.m., whatever. I would know exactly what I was doing. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but I started to kind of feel like I was getting dumber. And I didn't have any hobbies or interests. I was just going to work, going home, like rinse and repeat. So I decided to start reconnecting with a bunch of my hobbies that I had when I was a kid, just to see if I could inspire some passion within myself. So one thing that actually kind of got to me initially was this quote that I saw online on Facebook. It was, if the bee disappeared off the surface of the globe, then man would only have 4 years of life left, no more man, no more bees. It was attributed to Einstein, and I was like, oh my gosh, the bees are disappearing, and my bees, I was like, honeybees. So I went out and I was taking so many photos. I was just taking photos with my cell phone actually when I started. And I took a lot of pictures of just honeybees. And then one day I took a photo of another bee that was a native bee. And at the time I'd actually never heard of the term native bee. And I went to people at the time who I thought were bee experts, which were beekeepers. And I was like, hey, what kind of bee is this? And they had absolutely no idea. So I went back to Facebook again, because, really good place to get great information. But there was a group there full of entomologists, and there was a subcategory of people called militologists, which are people who study bees. And they told me that this was a native bee. They also fact-checked me on so many things. So they told me that quote that I saw online was actually completely made up. And Einstein never said it. Yeah, so I spent like kind of a little longer than I want to admit believing it was true, but it's okay. But yeah, basically they kind of fact-checked me on a lot of things. I ended up going back to the places I'd gone before because they were like, it's native bees, not honeybees, that are the ones that are threatened or endangered. So I went to yards or different gardens I had gone to before, and I had seen so many honeybees around there. But for some reason, I couldn't find any native bees. So it was the Crescent Farm at the LA Arboretum. I don't know if anyone's been there before, but really great garden. Want to visit, but the horticulturist there, his name's John Lasco. He had taken photos of about 4 to 5 species of native bees that he'd seen in one day, and I was like, this is crazy. I haven't seen any native bees where I've been going. And when I visited there, that was the first time I made the connection that if you want to look for native bees, you should also look for native plants. So all of those places I've been visiting before didn't have native plants. But yeah, I started documenting the native bees there, and there's over 40 species so far that I documented. Then I started going out to the Santa Monica Mountains, documenting there, and then ended up going to Death Valley. and I do astrophotography. So when I was coming back, I saw this plant that I'd never seen before. It was called a Nereapin inflatum, which is a buckwheat. And I just pulled over to photograph it, and there were these tiny bees that were about 3 to 4 millimeters, so like really, really tiny. And I ended up capturing for the first time living photos of those species. So I got the first photos of living representatives, and also ended up documenting behavior that had never been documented before, and that connected me with militologists in a way that I hadn't been before. And then just going out in nature accidentally, which makes sense now, started documenting climate change.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, that's kind of how I started. It was just like a hobby, and then it took off. And then with the finance job, I was asked to speak at California Native Plant Society Conference in 2022, and my boss gave me the option of either working at the finance firm or going to the conference. So I quit.
Yay for quitting. Also, mic check. Can folks hear? Okay, awesome.
Should I hold it maybe?
No, I think you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, I just couldn't tell. Yeah, our next question is kind of situated on like the urban landscape and where we're at. One thing that we work with Coyotl Macehualli is a community that's like of first timers, so working with plants, working with fauna, flora, the soil, the mushrooms, everything. So we're all teaching each other all these things. And one thing that I like to share with folks sometimes is when we're working with spirit of the land, when we don't have a direct connection to like soft bottom, meaning like what's below concrete, like what our earth. Also working with spirit of sky and air. So I think with pollinators specifically, we get to talk about that a little bit more. So I guess I want to ask you, like, have you ever worked in that frame of thinking of like working with spirit, working with sky, and working with new folks trying to connect with land? And yeah,
I would say a little bit, because I am directly interested in native bees, but when you start to be around native bees, the first thing that you're connected to is the native plants, but then you also start to connect to the whole ecosystem. And one thing I'd say that's really important is if you want to save the native bees, you need to save the native plants, you need to save the native ecosystems or restore them as well. And that includes a lot of things that people might not necessarily like, that people consider pests, like aphids or thrips, ants, spiders. But these things are all really important as part of the ecosystem. And I'd say one thing that's really interesting too is they could disappear right now, and it won't directly impact people. This is something that's going to go down the line, and it could be something that could impact people health-wise, but it could also impact people emotionally as well. So a lot of times with the work that I'm doing, if it's in someone's yard or it's out somewhere in the desert, just spending time outside can really be an emotional reset. So I just think it's really important for people to spend time not around electronics or around things that revolve around themselves.
Yeah.
So that's one reason why it's like really good what you guys are doing, like in wild areas.
Yeah. Our next question is actually thinking about like what the true impact maybe that you've observed with like maybe guerrilla garden sites or microhabitats in the city. Is that actually like confusing any bees that you've seen, or actually showing like, is it like a respite area for them? Like,
Yeah, it's really important to guerrilla garden or just create native spaces, because their habitat loss is one of the reasons for pollinator decline. So creating these like micro ecosystems, it creates habitats, kind of like a native landscaping bridge for these creatures to travel between. And it doesn't just give them a rest stop, but it also helps increase their genetic diversity. So they're less likely to be susceptible to certain things. But also when you create these, birds will start visiting. And I'm like, oh, this is a good spot to remember. And then they'll do seed dispersal. So it'll kind of take on a life of its own as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we were specifically thinking of like the Basilia specific bee in the Coyote Canyon, I think. That took you about, like you said, a year or so to like find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was one of my favorites, and I was so ecstatic to see them. But so this bee was the WB. It's sorry, I don't know common names as well, but it's called Coyotl Macehualli, and this bee, like when you look at it, it scatters. It does not like people. So I ended up spending an entire day with them, and after a while they got used to me. But I was so excited to see this bee, and yeah, just years of searching in a very, very beautiful area. So if you guys ever want to go out to like the Joshua Tree area, Coyote Canyon is absolutely beautiful. There's also a really steady year-round spring there, and bighorn sheep show up a lot of times as well. So kind of cool to observe. Yeah.
I went through this book and it was like a friend telling me like a story of their travels, and it does go into scientific. I want to honor that. It just goes into all the scientific stuff, but it was just so like lovely, and it worked with like how my brain works, both having the visuals, and I just remember things more when they're told in like the story mode. So I was curious as to your approach into like what inspired you to put together a book, and the format that you decided to tell this journey. You captured a lot of species that folks hadn't like captured before, and that was like, oh my god, like there's so many wow, oh my god moments, and it also like captures this pivotal time during a climate crisis where it's like everything is really unstable, but there's still hope. I think there's still plenty of hope, and I think the fact that there's like a group of people here who want to talk about like bees and plants is amazing. But yeah, how I got started, it was actually a conversation with my friend Olivia. She was counting every single species of bee there was in California, and she got to 1,643. And there's over 20,000 species of bees in the world. And what's really amazing about California, we have 8% of all bee species in the world.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a lot. So it's almost on par with the entire continent of Australia. Wow. Yeah, so initially I was just like, I wonder if I can get every letter in the alphabet. And it was just kind of like fun. And yeah, and then there's this one place I was going to, it was literally just on the side of the road. The Santa Monica Mountains. It was a place where people turned their cars around, but I saw a lot of flowers. So I was like, let me see what's there. And I ended up photographing about like 40 species of bees there. Wow. But because it's the Santa Monica Mountains, which is really biodiverse, but it also gets really dry in the middle of the year, and climate change was exacerbating it, people who live in the area asked a certain conservancy to do fire abatement, which basically meant cutting all the plants down. And they started doing that, I think it was in 2022. And since then, they've been doing it every year, but the bees have not returned. I have not seen a single bee there. And that was also the location that inspired me to start taking landscape photos, because I realized I'd never taken a photo of what it looked like before. And this was an issue that I was seeing like all the time. I was looking for these lost species that hadn't been seen for like decades. And I would look at their previous locations, and there'd be a neighborhood there, or sometimes like a parking lot or a university building. So I switched gears and was like, I think maybe I could make this into a book. So I started photographing the plants, so they had relationships with other animals there, the landscape, and then talking about the history of the land as well.
Do you have a question?
I do have a question. I'm like, probably. So what has your experience been like in talking to like native ethnobotanists? Because I know the only other frame of reference I have for somebody who's like been doing the photographing and keeping track of the stories of like native plants and stuff is I don't know if you guys know like Nicholas Hummingbird. He runs the California Native Plant page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I don't know, I guess like, because every single time you say, oh, when you start looking into the native bees, you look into the native plants, and then I hear that, I'm like, oh, and then you gotta look for the native people, right? Like, and their stories and their relationship with these ecosystems and stuff. And so I guess I'm just curious about your experience with that.
Yeah, that was actually one thing that I noticed when I was initially started working on this book. I was like, this is very Eurocentric.
Yes.
they're like Latin names that were made by like European people, even like the plants, everything was like very Eurocentric. So I actually started talking to some Chumash people because I was working on the Channel Islands to document bees, and they invited me to one of their trips. They visit like once a month to Santa Cruz and Santa Rosa Island, and that was the first time I'd actually talked to them about their history. And obviously it's people are sort of in separate groups, but it was just really interesting how they were still struggling to connect to their own history and like relearning their own languages. And so that kind of inspired me to incorporate the history of the original people into a lot of these stories, because a lot of these places, like I'd never heard of the John Baptista Trail, the Piazza Trail, and I didn't realize like a lot of these places I've been visiting were like stops that people were making, and each one of these stops was an indigenous community.
Yeah.
So like Coyote Canyon that I just mentioned, that was a stop, and the only reason people were going there was because there were people that didn't have it, and they're like, oh, can we take advantage of this?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think one thing too that I've also really started to understand is people should tell their own stories. I think it's more impactful. Because a lot of times, like I know this is probably controversial, but like me personally, I don't do land acknowledgements because it feels, I wouldn't say performative, but I just personally am not connected to it. So then I like to be around people who are actually connected to it, have the history, and then they can speak for themselves, because I don't want to seem like disingenuine or take things away from people. But also too, like one of the areas that I was going to, it was my friend Devlin's land in the Chesapeake near Fillmore. He was like, oh, I'm discovering all these new plants. And then he was talking to indigenous people who were from the area, and they were like, oh yeah, we know that plant. There's this other one also over here, and you could use it for this and this. So it wasn't like people were saying like, oh, I'm discovering this new thing, but it had actually been known about before.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how like who writes history and like what history is remembered.
The language that's used.
Yeah, the language that's used. It's really interesting. But,
It might add to the ABCs part of your.
I mean, yeah. No, I would actually love to do this. Well, I'm working on this again, like worldwide, but I think it'd be amazing. Like, so the flashcards that I have there, I was talking to someone who speaks, because I don't speak English, but they speak Spanish, and I was thinking of maybe doing this in different languages, so it can appeal to more people, and just try and find the common names in whatever language they're assigned to.
Yeah, language is incredibly important. Something that we've been trying our best to weave into our practices, and part of that is also learning the language that the earth learned how to like communicate with us in, and so that's another aspect of that. My next question is on ethics of like observing these pollinators, because they are in a certain precariousness right now, in numbers, and also sometimes you have to get into landscapes that are a little more remote. So I wanted to give time for that.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about community scientists, which is what I consider myself, we do things like we kind of make up our own rules for how we do things, not the standard old scientific way, which specifically with bees, what militologists historically did was they put out a pan trap, which would be like a bowl of something with some liquid in it, and it would attract not just the bees they were looking for, but so many things that would fly by. So one of my friends who does this really regularly, she'll put a pan trap out for about 8 hours and only 200 insects in it at the end of the day. And I think it's really sad. And also, like, I've seen bees. There's 7 bees in this book that had never been photographed alive before. And
Congrats.
yeah,
I would be freaking out like, whoa.
I gotta tell you about one of them. I'm so excited about. But it's interesting because community scientists can lead the field in so many. Because like if you're studying things dead, you don't know about their behaviors or their interactions with the world around them. And one of the ways I'm able to get so many good photos of them is because when you spend time with them, like this is kind of anthropomorphizing them, but you start to see they have personalities, or they have routines, or they have habits, and you just pay attention to what those are, and then you just kind of stake yourself out in those areas, and you photograph them while they're going about those habits. But yeah, also while I'm out there, I try not to like step on anything. But I've also started to realize too, like bare patches of soil, bees nest in them, but also even if there's not something growing there, stepping on soil can really compact it, so it can prevent things from going there in the future. So I think that's really good to notice as well. But also I've been keeping, like, you'll notice a lot of the locations where these bees are, it's kind of vague. So I've had other militologists, there's one bee that's not in this book, that's so rare it's not even in people's labs. And I saw 3 individuals. And yeah, and then this lady who's an expert in the genus was like trying to get me to tell her where they were. And I was like, I only saw 3 of them. Yeah. But it's interesting too, because like she was like, how are we gonna learn about them if we don't collect them? And then yeah, I was like, what are you trying to learn? And then one of my friends, he's absolutely amazing now, but like when I first started, he's like, you're not contributing to science. But then he I take pictures in a way where hopefully they're portraits and beautiful, but also you can ID them to species without capturing them. And he started realizing you can ID them through my photos. So we've started going out on trips together to see like really cool, rare things, actually, which is really amazing. But yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you have any special like tips for people starting out in kind of like the sphere of your world?
Like photography?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you could literally start with your phone. For my first 2 years, cell phone, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna go really advanced. I got this clip-on thing that you can clip on the front of your phone, and you can take macro photos. It was like $15. So you don't need to. I have really expensive camera equipment now, but you don't need it, honestly. Yeah, so that's the first thing, and then honestly just getting familiarized with their behaviors. And a lot of these bees in the book are, they have specialist relationships with certain plants. So if you want to look for the bee, you look for the plant. And I was using apps like iNaturalist, so if I didn't want to drive out 4 or 5 hours without knowing the plant was blooming, I could see if someone in that area had seen the plant, and I was like, okay, now I'm going to make the drive. But yeah, I show up about 30 minutes before dawn. That's when I take my landscape photos, and that's when I look for the males. So the males are typically sleeping in the flowers or on the plant stems. And if you see them around, then you know the females are there, because the males' only purpose is just to mate. So they're going to hang out where the females are. And then the females show up like the midday flyers, at least around 10 a.m. when the sun hits them. And yeah, the males keep returning to the exact same spot night after night, so you can find them really easily year after year even too. So like their descendants will keep going back to the same plants, which is really cool.
Yes.
So in the book, there's so many cross borders, boundaries. There's different terrains. Even at one point, there's like a place where there's people in robes doing weird stuff. Like of all the stories, like what are like 1 or 2 that stand out like the most? Maybe some interesting findings.
Okay, stand out like kind of weird, like the one you were just talking about, or like very cool?
Either the cool is always amazing,
okay,
but
cool,
weird
yeah.
is interesting too.
Yeah, I guess. So I'll start with the weird one first, because I feel like that one's kind of a publisher like had me edit that one back a lot. So there's this bee. It's called Bombus franklini that I've been looking for every year since I think 2021. Haven't found it yet. It hasn't been seen since August 2006. But I go to the Siskiyous or Trinity Alps every year, climb up the mountains to look for it. And has anyone ever been to like the Siskiyou area? There's a bunch of hippies there, which I wasn't expecting to find. But there was this meadow, and ran into like, I guess you'd call them a cult. So it was people in white robes, and we had like an altar.
Oh no.
Yeah, and my friend was I was like, hell no. But my friend went over there, and he was like, let me just check these people out. And I guess they were spraying around it, and then I was like not going over there, and then they just wandered off into the woods. But yeah, I started going back there, and there's people we're into things that are really interesting there. So that's, yeah, but also I found like my very first parasitic bumblebee in that area too, which I was really happy about. Yeah.
Bumblebees can be parasitic?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, so this one, it's actually the FB in the book, Bombus flavidus. So what happens is there's no queens, they're just queen overthrowing females, but they'll sneak into the hive of certain bumblebee species, they'll kick out the queen or kill her, and they'll make all of her workers do her bidding. So they'll basically, she'll lay just males in future overthrowing, queen overthrowing females. And yeah, she takes over the hive.
So it's like bee politics? Like there's a coup?
I mean, sort of. There's a coup. Yeah, I don't know if bee politics is the right word. Yeah, especially not U.S. politics. But yeah, they're definitely. There's a lot of parasitic bees actually. Those ones are social parasites are the rare ones among the kleptoparasites. I think there's like 5 in this book that are kleptoparasites. What's really cool too is a lot of them you can actually ID the species by their host bee. Which is really cool. So if you see the parasite around, you're like, oh, okay, then the host bee also has to be around here too, which is really cool. Yeah.
Hear me out. I know generally in like the scientific community, there's like, oh, okay, we don't want to be anthropomorphizing animals.
I do it.
If they're showing personalities, if they're showing habits and social structures, it's not necessarily that we're making them people, it's just we're recognizing
that's what
our
it is.
collective personhood.
Yeah, no, and it's honestly when you spend time with them, they like I talk about bumblebees like this a lot with their buzz pollination. You'll see like so they'll visit like a nightshade plant, like a tomato, and they'll vibrate at a certain frequency and it'll release pollen. At the beginning of their season, they're not that great at it, but if you keep spending time with them, you see them getting better. Whoa. So they're developing skills, and then also like the males, they have like a certain route they like to fly around bushes, or they have a certain perch that they like. And I've started noticing, like with a lot of the males, there's a certain flower they keep staring at. And I was like, why are they staring at this flower? And I realized that they were like, they mated with a female there one time. Yeah. And they're like, yeah. So they keep checking that flower. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I realized too, if I see them mating there, they'll just kind of stay by that flower because the male's going to keep coming back. And yeah, so there's these behaviors. They have so many different social structures that people like, don't even realize because people think just solitary or just like social like bumblebees or honeybees, but there's so many different layers. I saw this. Oh, this is funny. Okay, so I was in Mojave one time and I was looking at these male bees. There was Coyotl and Diadacia. They were sleeping in mallows, and in the morning before the females were out, they were just drinking nectar. And this one Coyotl basically accidentally dive bombed a Diadacia bee, and went to another flower, and that Diadacia came out of the flower, didn't like just completely blood up, so could not see the other bee, but knew exactly where that bee went and just flew out of its flower and smacked it and flew off. And I was like, yeah. And also I was like, how did you know? I guess the sense of smell was really good, but it was really funny, and I would have loved to like caught that on film. It was just so random, but yeah, they yeah,
World star.
Yeah, they definitely think and then they get used to you, and
we did want to open up to the audience, and also anyone that's on the live stream. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Natasha, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah, so I did a season where I was looking for bumblebee nests, and I noticed that they'll have certain days where they like today I'm only gonna go to this flower, and they just go to this flower. So in my head I was asking whatever that word you said, and I was like, do they have a conversation and then they decide today I'm gonna just focus on this flower, tomorrow I'm gonna focus on this species. But I don't know, what are your thoughts, or like have you seen that kind of behavior?
Yeah, it definitely could be that, but also like flowers, they'll replenish their resources at different times. So it could also be that maybe they know this is not a good time to visit for resources. Yeah, I don't know. That's an area that definitely needs to be studied more.
I'm curious about your observations and maybe if you've been in spaces that have recently been on fire.
Yes, I have.
And good fire versus like crazy wildfire.
I would say none of it's been really good fire recently. So, well, you guys probably all know this, but like chaparral ecosystems or Mediterranean habitats, they're supposed to have fires, but not these really intense fires that we're having now that spaced out however many years. But actually one of the bees in the book is in my friend Paloma's backyard. And they actually rewilded their yard to match the chaparral ecosystem in the mountains behind them. And what was really crazy was less than a month after they lost their entire yard, saplings started to grow back. The plants came back really, really quickly. And there's a bee there that shows up like clockwork, like March 1st, and the bee came back. And it was just really amazing to see the habitat regrow really quickly. But also what was really amazing was I think at that time I photographed 14 species of bees in their yard. There was a 15th that showed up, and it was a parasite of other bees. So habitats can definitely regrow. There's another one, the bee in the book that was at the Sepulveda Wildlife Basin. That's another fire impacted area as well. I think it was, what year was it when the sky turned orange? Was that 2020?
Either 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, one of those years. But yeah, there was a fire. There were like 2 or 3 fires there. So that habitat completely disappeared. And then, but yeah, the bees came back. So.
Have you seen any fire specific behavior?
So one thing I have noticed, there are plants that are fire followers. And in years that those really, really pop up, a lot of those seem to be pollinators for like generalists, or plants for generalist pollinators. So I wonder if there's maybe a connection to just bring like large populations back because of that. But yeah, that's really interesting.
I was wondering if you could share some common species in this area of El Sereno that we can look for. And then the second part of that question is, do you have any recommended like perennials that we could try planting that are easy to grow that might also be?
Yeah, definitely. So in this area, you're going to see a lot of Anthophora bees. There's 2 different species you'll like to see. They're common names like digger bees. You're also going to see a lot of sweat bees. You're likely to see some bumblebees as well. If you have a native habitat, I wouldn't be surprised with osmia. Possibly even some mining bees, which would be early spring. So in this area, I would recommend pretty much anything in the Asteraceae family. So like daisies, asters, sunflowers, allies, buckwheat are really great. Also, Cassilia, which you were mentioning before. Mallows are great as well. And those are, you're going to see some really fun bee interactions on those. And then I also recommend grasses, which I know people are like, oh, that's an interesting plant. But male bees like to sleep on them. So it's a really good habitat for those. And you'll also see like wasps will sleep on them and flies as well. I also recommend salvia as well, because they have sort of a soft center. So there's some bees that will actually excavate the center of those and sleep inside of them. But they're also a really great pollinator plant as well.
I have a question about kind of like parasitic bees, or it's 2 parts. One, like how do you see other bees? Do you see like bees kind of overthrowing the parasitic bees? If they like, hey, this is not okay, we're not okay with this, or do they just follow command? It's like by their genetic?
Yeah, so parasitic bees, so the social parasites that I described before, those are the more rare ones, but the more common ones are kleptoparasites. So about 13% of all bee species are kleptoparasites. So they'll go into the burrow of a solitary nesting bee. So they'll sneak in, they'll lay an egg, and they'll try and get out really quick. So when that egg hatches, it'll either kill or consume the larva of the host bee, and then it will eat all pollen provisioned by the host species. So these parasites, the males and the females, they don't create any sort of nesting at all. And they're basically population control. Like a lot of times people think, oh, this is really bad, but it's actually kind of good overall, because I compare it to like lions or gazelles on the savannah. So if there were no lions and there were just a bunch of gazelles, it'd be less resources for them to eat. So the lions keep the population in control. So the ones that do survive are stronger, but they also have plenty of food. But you do see some of the host bees sometimes, they're like, someone's been in here, and you'll see the females will like kind of dig the dirt up and like an egg will pop out sometimes as well, because there's a lot of parasites of bees. There's flies as well. Bee flies will like hover over their little burrows and just toss eggs down there. Yeah. So yeah.
Thank you. For the bee that you're saying is parasitic to the hive, on this step, is it a honeybee hive, or are there native bees that also form hive?
Yeah, so that was Bombus flavitus, is a native bee. And I don't think I actually said this before, but yeah, honeybees are not native to the US. So yeah, I don't have that relationship with the native bees here. But yeah, the bumblebee, Bombus flavitus, will go after like Bombus melanopigus. I think we'll go after occidentalis, which is an endangered bee. Yeah, so they'll go after just specific species, and they're typically about the same size as well, the females at least.
Occidentalis bee is the one that forms the hive.
Sorry?
The Occidentalis bee is the one that forms the hive.
Yeah, that's the one that forms the hive, yes. Yeah.
I'm curious to know, I've heard that bees only sting if you're stressed out or you're scared. Is that specific to like one species, or is that like all bees?
Yeah, so most native bees rarely ever sting, and it's the females that sting. So they're the only ones with stingers. But yeah, it's usually the ones that are eusocial, the ones that have hives are more likely to sting because they have something that they're protecting. But also a lot of native bees have stingers that are too small to pierce human skin, so they can't even sting you if they wanted to. But yeah, it's really interesting. There's this whole like tribe of bees called stingless bees. And people are like, oh, they don't have stingers, but their stingers are actually just too small to sting people. It's really interesting. That's their common name, because there's also bees like Andrina, which are the mining bees. They also have stingers that are too small to sting people.
What size are they? Are they like smaller than like the normal bee?
So they're like honeybee size, but they can also be smaller as well. Just yeah, so they're not meant to sting people, but they are possibly meant to sting each other. I've seen bees try to sting each other. Or other things maybe in their environment.
I have a question, but I'll let you answer.
How has the proliferation of neonicotinoids affected the natural bees? I mean, I know it affects honeybees, you know, all the disorders being blamed on that, and varroa mites too. Do those, I mean, since wild bees aren't really like honeybees, they don't colonize like that?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
Oh, so the neonicotinoids are toxins that are used for like supporting plants, but maybe getting rid of pesticide or like
sprays.
Yeah, there's sprays on plants to get rid of insects. They can also be like herbicides, things that like forever chemicals, or a lot of them that are on the soil. But yeah, so I guess the easier thing to answer first is with the deformed wing virus from varroa mites. So that impacts honeybees directly. And varroa mites, just like honeybees, are from Europe. So what's really interesting about those is they cause deformed wing virus. So when the bees are developing, larvae turning into adults, they will get into the little the cells, and they will cause their wings to shrink. But there's also some honeybee adults that are carriers. So they're not physically impacted by it, but they still have it in them. So honeybees, since they're generalist pollinators, they'll visit a whole bunch of different plants. And what's been found is that they've actually been infecting the pollen that the plants they're visiting. And it's really, really bad in urban areas because there's less floral diversity. So bumblebees will visit the same flowers, they'll collect that pollen, and they'll take it back to their hive. And we started seeing bumblebees with deformed wing virus because of their proximity to honeybees. And one way to prevent that is, again, I stop farming honeybees, but also increase the biodiversity of the habitats, especially in neighborhoods. And then regarding the neonicotinoids, so there's a couple different factors. I would say one, stop buying seeds from like big stores. Go to places like you or Theater Payne local garden stores, because a lot of times seeds will actually be covered in a pesticide. And also in nature, we've started seeing specifically bumblebees, like bumblebee queens, for some reason at the end of the year, just dying in masses. And my friend Leaf, who, with the Xerces Society, runs the Bumblebee Atlas. He started realizing that it was happening in really large numbers the last 2 years because he had all of these community scientists involved in the Bumblebee Atlas seeing this, and then they all started reaching out to him. So we're hoping next year to kind of, basically we've been collecting specimens and testing them to see what it is that they actually house. Yeah, so it's definitely, there's a mass die-off. And I think,
So it is affecting the wild population as well.
oh yeah, definitely.
I thought because they weren't clustered like the honeybees.
Yeah, well, it's so far it is more of the eusocial ones, like the bumblebees, that are
Especially
impacted.
raw.
Yeah, but I do wonder if it is also impacting the solitary bees, because a lot of times when you look at the research on bees, it is the larger bees, the ones that are more charismatic or easier to not overlook, that have more research about them, which is why in California, when we're talking about endangered bees, it's typically the bumblebees. And even though there are more than just those. So I'm sure it's impacting the solitary ones as well.
Well, gotta get that stuff banned.
Yeah, that would be great.
Vinegar works just as good on bees sometimes.
Man, I have so many questions, but
Okay.
let me remember the one. I guess following up on that question of like the impact of some of the things that we've already like in mass have like been using, like the pesticides and stuff. Like, are there any things that you would recommend for like guerrilla gardeners or anyone at home trying to like caretake these fields?
Yeah, I kind of hit on this a little bit before, but if you want to save the bees, you do need to save the entire ecosystem. So there's certain insects that are called like indicator insects. Bees can do those as well, but there's also wasps and spiders. So wasps rely on other creatures to survive. There's a certain wasp that will actually oviposit an egg into the body beneath it, and it'll act like it's a cocoon and population control for them. So if you're not using those pesticides and you created a nice biodiverse habitat, these wasps also lay swings. They'll control the population naturally of these creatures, so you need less pesticides or herbicides as well. So yeah, we look out for lacewing eggs, adults, larvae, wasps, spiders, all of those creatures in your environment. And if you have those, it's a really good indication of a healthy ecosystem.
Do you have like recommendations for like shelter like creating? I think you had mentioned like you made a
Mason bee,
yeah.
Mason bee things too. Those are good too.
Yeah. So I'm probably not the person to ask because I'm kind of anti those. But okay, I will say this.
I'm in Texas, not here. So.
Okay. So what I will say though is that there's a lot of like mason bee or like bee dorms that are designed for them that aren't actually designed well. So if you are going to get those, I would recommend getting some that are at least 6 inches deep and they have cells that you can take apart. If they have cells that you can't take apart, put paper straws in them. So then at the end of the bee season, it's in the season when they're capped. And then you just take them out and unravel them. And there's actually YouTube videos that give you instructions for how to clean the cocoons. And what's really great about them is they're water resistant, so they're really easy to clean. And then if you do have the bee dorm, get one that has like a sort of drawer at the top with a hole in it. And that's so the bees can emerge when they're supposed to. So typically female bees, solitary cavity nesting ones, will lay males in the front and then females in the back. So males emerge first. They also take less time to develop, which is why they're typically smaller than females in the back. So when you put them in the drawers instead of back in the little burrows, make sure they emerge when they're supposed to. Also, I found a lot of times with those bee dorms, people aren't cleaning them out like when they're supposed to be because they don't know what species are there or how many generations. So it could be kind of a vector for disease or pests, mites, things like that. So if you do want to support them, you can do like kind of what we were talking about before, plant salvia. So bees will nest in them when they're supposed to. Leave bare patches of soil. Also, some bees just nest right under the plant material. Instead of mulch, just let plant material fall when it's supposed to, and bees can breathe through that. And also can work with like kind of a winter blanket through the winter, which I know kind of turns into a thing with like fire, because we've been having fires lately, and that's kind of a whole conversation. But yeah, if you just create a habitat, bees will find the places to nest on their own. You don't need to You don't need to do it. Also with the thing with bee dorms as well, a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't have any native bees around me, so let me buy some. And just because a bee is native to the United States doesn't mean it's native to where you live. So you might actually be introducing species to your area that aren't native. And I'm seeing that a lot with like mason bees or like different megachile bees as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, we'll start.
Okay. Can I ask 2 questions? One, earlier talking about how like you gotta be careful about walking on bare soil because you can impact it and there may be insects living there. So what would you say is like how do you tread?
I tread very carefully, and I tread in places where there's already compact soil. Yeah, so like, I guess the first time I actually thought about this was there was a Lancaster super bloom. I can't remember what year it was, but it was when the poppies were everywhere. The soil is just really soft and loose, but there were so many people walking there. They were like, oh, they're just smashing the soil. And they're like, oh, I'm not stepping on the flowers, but there's future flowers that need that like soft soil to come from. So yeah, just be really like cognizant of where you're stepping, but also people, when you go out in nature, even if you're really careful, you're gonna do damage. Just try and reduce it as much as possible.
Which brings me to my second question, hopefully last one. But like, what's it called? What would you say? So the biggest things that I'm getting away from like what humans can do to be like a good part of the ecosystem is to create habitats so we can attract the bees and make it actually functional for them. To tread lightly and be careful and cognizant. What would you say is like something else that humans can do on our part to be like, oh hey, like respecting the privacy and allowing that like bee populations, maybe like I like that you mentioned population control because we want them to really like flourish and actually take over the balance of the delicate ecosystem, or like I don't know, because I was thinking like, oh, do humans kill parasitic bees? But it feels like a huge reach.
Yeah, I mean, people can kill like all kinds of bees, but yeah, I would say other things you can do is honestly just take pictures and post them online when you find new things, because there's so many lost species that have been found just because someone went out with their camera and posted something on iNaturalist, and it opens up a conversation. And if you found something that is possibly endangered, that could be a reason to protect an area, like No Hanging Hills. Like I've been working with them and documenting endangered bumblebees. Yeah, I think that's mostly it. Yeah.
Hello, my question to you is how did you sustain this work, not just financially, but like mentally, emotionally? I ask because I work a full-time job, and even just photographing birds is like, I come to the weekend and I'm so tired, and I know that you travel to very far places, like the Mojave Desert, Lancaster, so how did you make this sustainable? And what pace did you approach your work?
Yeah, so I would say initially when I was working the finance job, I go through like phases that are not sustainable at all, really. So with the finance job, when I was doing this, I was waking up at like 4 a.m, and then I'd go to the Crescent Farm because they would let me in early. And then after I was done working, I'd visit the Crescent Farm in the evening again. And then when I stopped working, I was like, oh, I have so much more free time. And then I would not sleep at all because I was like, well, I can't sleep, so maybe I should just drive 4 hours out to the desert and spend the entire day there. So I'd spend like 20 hours a day out in the middle of nowhere and just not sleep for like months, which was really unhealthy. But I feel like I found a kind of better balance now. I still don't sleep 8 hours a night, maybe like 4 to 5, which is pretty good for me. But yeah, I don't really have a good balance. So probably not the best person to ask on that.
Oh wait, we have a stack. So yeah, me and then Rob. Yeah.
No, you
No,
go
you
first.
like
Krystle, thank you so much for being here, Krystle.
Thank you.
Pleasure to meet you in person. After hearing a little bit about you like online, I think my question kind of goes back to, I think you were on the the podcast. Natural, I can't remember it right now.
Garden State Naturalist?
Yes.
Okay.
Golden State Naturalist. And you were mentioning a little bit about how our native bees aren't necessarily as lazy as others would qualify them as. And so I guess it goes kind of more for me like intrigued if you know more about like the history of like why were European bees more catered to have a more important role with like our agriculture and just our ecosystem as a whole?
Yeah, that's a complicated question. So I think the easiest, I think the most obvious answer is that they're so easy to manage. You can literally pick up their hive and like drop it anywhere. And the fact that you see so many of them around, people are like, oh, they're pollinating really well. So specifically with like the almond farming that happens in February, where not a lot of pollinators are out. So farmers or beekeepers from all over the US will drive to California with like possibly billions of honeybees, and they'll just like, I've gone out there in February, it's just so loud, they're swarming. And they actually do, like there are native pollinators that are out, like flies are amazing pollinators, but they get scared off by honeybees. Another thing I noticed too is a lot of times when farmers see the honeybees there, they actually go, oh, it's just the honeybees pollinating. They don't spend time watching what's actually doing it. So a lot of these farms I've seen, like even though the ecosystem's gone, you'll see native bees, you'll see all these wasps, you'll see birds visiting, flies. There was an irrigation ditch I saw tadpoles in, which I was shocked at. And there's a lot of farmers now who are starting to farm alongside hedgerows and native ecosystems because they're starting to realize that relying on a single invasive farm animal is not sustainable, and they're not very good pollinators. So if you have a diversity of pollinators, the crop is actually going to yield a lot more fruits or vegetables possibly. But also because you have the things like the wasps and the spiders in there, they're also really good at pest control as well. So yeah, it's just education, and honeybees are just very visible. They're really easy to control, and native bees are a little bit harder to do that. Yeah.
They're more picky.
They're more picky. They could be more picky as well, but they also rely on a habitat. So you can't just keep dumping so many chemicals into it as well. Yeah.
You said plant salvia. Do you mean all salvia genus plants?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, I specifically look at, I don't know the species name, but black and white salvia are the two.
Mellifera for the black and Aviana for the white. Those are the two most common.
Okay, I'm glad you're here. I know that.
So those are the best types that you found?
Yeah, I absolutely love those. I've actually seen some, there's a petal cutter bee that'll actually cut the petals off flowers around them. They'll roll them up and then they'll take them inside the cavities that they've created in salvia stems and nest in them. And it's really cool too because they don't actually kill the plant. Yeah.
I mean, they have like a pith, right? Those plants.
Yeah, like a soft pitty stem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the work you do in other places in the country or around the world on bees?
Yeah, so I travel all over the globe documenting rare and endangered bees. Lately, I've switched to community as well, but like I guess what I've done in the past is I just got back from my most recent trip was Hawaii. So Hawaii I was really interested in because there's only one genus of native bee there. It's a Hylaeus bee or a mast bee. And I think there's about 64 species and quite a few of them are endangered. What was really interesting about when I went there was, I think I photographed about 30 things and 4 of them were actually native. So pretty much anything there that's not native is considered invasive. And this one I highlight because it was restricted access to locations, had made it so there was a lot less native plants. So I actually found a native bee in an active volcanic crater. It was one of the endangered species. And in that crater, it was just the native plant and just the native bee. So yeah, just traveling around the world documenting that. And then next year, I'm planning on going to 2 different countries in Africa. And I'm going to talk about the bees, but also the community as well. So in Kenya specifically, there's women that are farming mangroves, but they're using the native honeybees that are actually part of the ecosystem to farm them. So they're getting obviously the fruit, but they're also getting honey, and they're using that as a way to support themselves. So I think it's really good to, that's an example of kind of having them tell their own stories. So yeah, just there to photograph, but they're doing all the talking.
Do
you know much about native honeybees? Because I've heard, like, for example, in Mexico, that they're passing the tradition of some native species for honey. Do you know much about honeybees in the Americas?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because a lot of people call any bee that produces honey a honeybee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so a honeybee is just a bee in the genus Apis. So if it's not in the genus Apis, it's not a honeybee. So they're only native to Europe, Asia, and Africa. The bees that are in Central and South America are stingless bees, the Melipone bees. So most of them are native to there, and they are eusocial, so they live in a hive. They have like a queen, a caste system, and multiple generations. But yeah, that's another great example of people farming bees, but not harming the ecosystem. I do wonder too if it maybe was like the way honeybees were originally introduced here, that is maybe like people are kind of keeping up the status quo as to a reason why they're so harmful to the ecosystems when in Central and Southern America, that's South America, that's not happening. But yeah, I think the honey bloom is great, and they're not harming the ecosystem.
I'm kind of curious, as a former beekeeper yourself, how do you feel about commercial beekeepers, all these operations that go into San Joaquin Valley, and how detrimental have they been to our native bees?
Yeah, so I was actually never a beekeeper. I was just photographing them.
Oh, I
so
see.
yeah, so I was just photographing them. So I didn't beekeep them myself. I did have a bunch of beekeeper friends. But what I will say is honeybees can travel really far from their hive. It's been studied that they can
5 miles, actually.
Yeah, like a 2-mile radius, I guess, or 5 miles. But specifically in drought years, that's when it's the competition with native bees or all native pollinators is the worst. So there's a bee in this book, the bee. I think it was 2022, so it was the third year of a drought, and it hit about 117 my last visit, and the flowers were like barely flowering. And a week prior to my last visit, I'd seen about 100 individual native bees, but because of the drought, the bees started disappearing, and the honeybees were like traveling really far to look for floral resources. They found these bushes that I've been visiting, and they just swarmed on them. And because they swarmed so early in the morning, because they're also there is an African subspecies in all of the European bees that are here. Yeah, which actually I'll get into that a little bit too. But they can show up really early in the morning, stay when it's like 117, and then go to the evening. So they just outcompete not just the native bees, but also all of the native pollinators. But yeah, I guess to break down too, like, because people always say like the Africanized honeybees are really aggressive, but there was a woman who studied the genetic biodiversity of honeybees in the Western United States, and she found that all of them that she tested were actually multiple European subspecies and then the one African. So it's not really Africanized versus European, it's more domesticated versus non-domesticated. So they just adjust their behavior to the ecosystem. So if they're domesticated, they
I've had hives go wild. If you don't see them for 2 or 3 years, you come back, it means that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what happens. And then like these ones that people are like, oh, they're Africanized, they're really aggressive. All you do is just swap out the queen with the domesticated one, and it calms down the hive. So yeah. So yeah.
How do you see how do you think that we can transform like our bee farming here in California and like honey production?
Yeah, there's people who are definitely doing it really well. And I think one thing that separates those beekeepers from a lot of other ones is they are acknowledging that it's what they're doing isn't for the benefit of the ecosystem, it's that they enjoy beekeeping. And they also take steps to prevent their hives from like splitting and going out into nature, or they work with other organizations that will like come and collect the colony as they're splitting and then maybe put them in a new hive in a different area. But yeah, just not putting the hives out in nature is really, really great. Also too, there's a lot of things that people do that are like, oh, this will benefit bees, but it actually only benefits honeybees. So like putting water out, you create this whole maybe ecosystem, but then you put like pans of water out, that's just for honeybees. So it's really good to know like which bees you're attracting with what.
Oh yeah, I have a question. We did want to wrap this up pretty soon, but maybe take two more questions after mine. But in the beginning of the book, you start off with that misquote.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just wondering, like, if you wanted folks, because there's a lot of misconceptions about bees, you know, the honeybees especially being like the most popular. And if you wanted someone to actually have like a quote that sticks with them, like what is a more like appropriate like route of thinking that you would want someone to stick? Because I feel like that one is like it gets your attention and it gets you to act.
I guess like native bees need better PR because we don't have quotes like that. I guess the one thing I would say is like saying you want to save the bees and saving honeybees is like saying you want to save birds by saving chickens. So that's like the closest you can come to. But like that quote's a lot more like the big Einstein quote is. People love that one and no one fact checks it, so I did it for a while. So yeah.
I've also heard.
Yeah.
What's I guess like what would be a takeaway, like a more appropriate, like truth-based like quote or like idea or concept?
Just if you want to save the people in the long term, if you want to save the bees, just save the entire ecosystem and value all of the different creatures in it. Also, nature doesn't have to revolve around people. I think that's a big thing because a lot of times people are like, "Oh, nature is a place I travel to." It does like. Have you seen those reviews on like national park? Yeah. Like you're outside, but yeah, it's like people just really think of nature as something belonging to them. It's just not the case. We are part of nature, even if we are sort of separating ourselves from it, and it will impact us eventually.
I'm curious to know what native plants, especially in Southern California, would you like to see more of in benefit of native California bees?
Oh, I guess the ones that the seed packets that I handed out, those are definitely really great for areas like not like the desert areas. I'd say like more urban areas or like chaparral ecosystems, which is what it's trying to habitat or replicate. But yeah, it's like the Cecilia and the South.
3349?
No.
Yeah, like the buckwheats, the sunflowers, things like that. But yeah, when you go into the deserts, there's like a completely different. There's Cecilia out there as well, but yeah, it's completely different plants. So yeah.
Well, thanks for putting that together.
Yeah, definitely.
More question.
I guess the question of like memory, you mentioned these bees have really tremendous memory. They like can follow generationally like their route. I guess going back to the question of the microhabitat, and is there any place that you would suggest not bringing bees into, like that, like high traffic areas or like an area with like, being specific about where you're creating routes?
Okay, like native bees where they can visit. Honestly, I wouldn't really limit it because I've seen native bees. I don't know what the area is called between the street and the sidewalk. That area where you just plant plants there. I've seen so many native bees visiting those areas. I honestly wouldn't limit it. Although I would say like some rooftops, people will put plants on like really high rooftops, and I've just seen bees will never find those.
That's actually where I started in LA.
Yeah.
And that's why I talk to people about like the spirit of sky and like air, and because one thing that we noticed was like it was a lot of different kinds of bees, and it was like I worked with like primarily in-house population and in the area, and they shared so much about their knowledge too. But yeah, they saw like blue bees and bees with like very fascinating, like beautiful little
Wow,
bees.
that's amazing that you saw them on rooftops.
It's not that tall. It's like 2-story, but still.
No, that's amazing because normally I guess I've been looking at taller rooftops, but even if it's like not something for bees, it could be a great stopover for birds and other creatures as well. So I mean, just because it might not necessarily benefit the bees, might as well do it for the birds, maybe. Yeah.
It looks like we have
Okay, so you're out in the Mojave Desert. You drove 3 to 4 hours, and you're there all day.
Yeah.
What are you eating? What are you drinking?
So this is the follow-up to her question where I don't take very good care of myself. I just started because I was like, oh, I need something really easy. I've been taking like mandarins or oranges because they're pre-wrapped. And I just started taking coolers out there with me because like I have a lot of camera equipment and sometimes I'll just wander off into the desert, so I have to carry all of it. So sometimes I just have something I can stick in my pocket. I'll have a bunch of water, but I think if someone, because like people have run into me in the middle of nowhere in the desert and they think like something's wrong. So I'm probably not the best example of someone to follow, but yeah, I'll take like mandarins, oranges, citrus, yeah. So.
And if you wanted to connect with you further or follow up in any way, are you local or are you like online?
I am online. So you can look me up at BSIP, BEESIP. That's my website. Also my Instagram. My email is hello@bsip.com. No problem.
Thank you for asking that last question. I would have forgotten to ask. But thank you, Krystle, for coming out. I want to thank Ologies. Who made the food, and also this was made possible through a small grant that we got from the California Humanities. So thank you all for coming out and supporting our space. Cool. So again, yeah. Do you want to say a little bit about your offerings?
Yeah, so I made some spicy calendars, some bighorn calendars. Also I have some flashcards that I made. So those are 42 of the most commonly encountered bees in the Western United States to hopefully help you ID them. But yeah, those are available for purchase, and then also hopefully everyone got some seeds. So yeah.
How about your book? Is your book available?
I think you guys have it here.
Oh, I thought you were going to bring it.
You thought I was gonna bring it? No, I didn't bring it.
Then let me talk to your the manager.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'll ask her.
Well, you get the book somewhere. Okay. Well, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone. Feel free to, stay in the space, look around if you've never been here before. But yeah.